It has been a decade now since Hurricane Katrina devastated New Orleans. President Obama marked the storm's anniversary by visiting the city and meeting with people who continue to rebuild their lives and communities. He plans to speak soon, and we will take you there live. Omar Villafranca is in New Orleans, and he joins us now. Omar, thanks for joining us. What do we expect to hear from President Obama this afternoon?
Before he gives his remarks later on, we want to mention that he is here at this community center here in the lower Ninth Ward. He's having a meeting right now, a roundtable meeting with some young men from the area. And then from there, he's going to give those prepared remarks. But earlier today, the president, along with New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu, walked around the Treme neighborhood in New Orleans. It borders the French Quarter, and it's near downtown. He walked several blocks in the area, and if you might remember and seen some of the footage, that a lot of the homes were destroyed in that area. Now, the president credited local, state, and federal government for working together. He walked several blocks, as we mentioned, and he talked to neighbors who were waiting on front porches there and shook their hand and asked them how they were doing, based on poll reports that we were able to see. He did make some quick remarks. He said he didn't want to get into everything that he was going to say here at the event, but he did say that even though a lot of these homes have been rebuilt, that there's still a lot of work to be done. He mentioned that jobs need to improve in this area, healthcare needs to improve here, and economic development and opportunity in the area here. So in a few minutes, we are expecting the president to give some prepared remarks, and we'll let you know what he says. Anne-Marie?
I'm curious, I know you've had a little bit of time to roam around the city, and I'm curious about what you've noticed, how you feel the recovery effort is going. I know that I don't think anyone in this country will forget the images of the lower Ninth Ward underwater and seeing really just the rooftops of so many homes and people desperate to be plucked from those rooftops. I think a lot of those people thought they would be returning to the lower Ninth Ward and at some point, and many never did. What did you see as you roamed around the city?
We were driving around the lower Ninth Ward this morning, and you still are seeing you're seeing some homes that have been rebuilt. There are families who have moved back in there, but you're still seeing a lot of homes that are abandoned. They have vines growing over them. They're falling apart. And then you have some lots that are literally just a slab. The homes were wiped away. Almost 10 years later, and the lower Ninth Ward really hasn't fully come back. Now, there's some stats that we were able to look up. Roughly 90% of the population has moved back to New Orleans after Katrina, but in that lower Ninth Ward section where we are here, the number is around 34 to 37% of people have moved back. That's not a lot compared to the rest of the city. Several people that we've talked to said it was a long process working with city and state entities trying to rebuild. Of course, it's well documented the problems that happen here on the state level trying to rebuild here in New Orleans, and a lot of people are still feeling that pain here, Anne-Marie.
Yeah, I remember shortly after Katrina when people were being relocated, and I was working in Philadelphia, and a number of people came to Philadelphia, and the sense was that this was going to be a temporary home, that there was no way that years and years later they wouldn't be going back, and many are still in Philadelphia and other cities around that area. I know a lot went to Texas as well. It's unbelievable that a decade has gone by, and still for some people it's like just yesterday.
And just talking to some of these residents that we asked them, we talked to one gentleman who was rebuilding his house 10 years later. He worked on so many homes in the neighborhood, but he was finally working on his home. He said it's one thing to rebuild a home, but it's going to take longer, he believes, to rebuild that community where everybody knows each other's name. He said a lot of the residents who live there are now priced out of the area or just didn't have enough money to rebuild. It's going to be a long, long process.
Yeah, I think we did a story recently about the rebuilding of some of these neighborhoods, and some areas have really nice new homes, but that was one of the things that the residents sort of felt melancholy about, that even though their home was better than it had been prior to Hurricane Katrina, their neighbors were gone. The familiarity of walking down to the corner store, all of that sort of stuff that that contributes to your quality of life just is no longer and will never be again.
And it's going to be a long process to rebuild that. We also talked to some of the people who are involved in the nonprofits that are helping to rebuild not only the lower Ninth Ward, but around New Orleans. And a big fear that they have is that we're coming up on the 10th year, the 10-year anniversary. A lot of people are worried that people are going to forget about New Orleans, forget, 11, 12 years down the road, that there still is a lot of work to be done in this area. And a lot of the nonprofit people and the people who are working down here and living down here are fearing that people not only across the state but across the country are going to forget about New Orleans.
Yeah, I can understand that fear. Of course, as you know, Omar, there are natural disasters in this country every year, and between hurricanes and forest fires and all that sort of thing. And yeah, in between, the people of New Orleans, some of them continue to wait. Omar Villafranca, thanks a lot. I know we'll be coming back to you a little bit later on after the president speaks.